Hey, it's the Iron Son. I think this is part 3 or 4 of I'm the Mother and the Father talking about the dynamics between single mothers and boys, particularly in the black community, but this pretty much works for any type of, this works for any group, honestly. It's the same dynamic. So I was talking about gaslighting last. One thing I wanted to say about this stuff is the whole point of this is to point at the target, at the particular issues, and then solve the issues. That's the that's the masculine way of dealing with things, and that's the way I want to deal with it, is to point at the issues and solve the issues. So I will offer solutions to these problems in the end. And I burped, so there is that. All right, so this is the big elephant in the room: the effects of having a masculine mother with a son. With the boys, a lot of times if the mom is masculinized, um, there's a lot of difficulties there. But on an esoteric level, the mother's masculine energy ends up draining the male sons, the younger male sons, and they end up. What's interesting is a lot of times they end up attracting masculine women because their mothers are very masculine themselves. Um, if they're not privy to it, their subconscious automatically looks for that. Um, so when they're young, when the boys are young, the masculinity inside of them isn't really as strong. Um, it it's kind of something. It's really interesting. So the kids naturally follow. They're naturally a little bit more feminine. Um, but when the boys get older, I think that's when the issue becomes more. Um, that's when the issue becomes more present because they children naturally see parents as the alpha. The issue is with single mother households, the child grows older and the child becomes an alpha. If it's a boy, which there is an alpha for females, but I'll explain that in a second. So if it's a young boy, the boy he goes from being the more feminine child to becoming a man because he goes through puberty and he gets more testosterone and he gets stronger, and he also starts to like women, but that's a different story. I'm not trying to cover that right now. So what ends up happening is you get this small, tiny, delicate, creature who looks very loving and, like, oh my God, he's so cute and cuddly, right? Very feminine. But then as the boy gets older, he becomes more masculine. So his masculine energy ends up brushing up against his mother's, and it causes issues. Now, a lot of these women end up kicking the boy out because when they see that he's too much to control, they simply can't really do anything. They don't know how to deal with it, so they just either throw him out, or or they um, either they throw him out or they just kind of. I mean, the other option that mothers have is to basically emasculate him, and by doing that, you can kind of control him a lot easier, and it makes it easier to deal with him. Um, the issue with doing the second is what I'm concerned with for the most part. Um, so, women emasculate. Some women do it consciously, some do it unconsciously. A lot of times, in my opinion, they probably don't know they're doing it, but then sometimes they consciously know they're doing it. And some of them think that they have to. A lot of women think that making the boy less masculine and have less testosterone actually makes him better and easier to deal with in society. But it actually makes the boy more manipulative and more controlling and more. It actually makes him worse, uh, ironically. But and it also turns him into a very insecure man in the future, and he becomes a kind of person who feels threatened when other people show more dominant traits. He'll end up being the kind of person to try to bring those people down, and he'll look down on people who are trying to conquer their own personal things, and they just have a dominating presence. Um, Boys naturally want to dominate. They naturally want to conquer. They naturally want to win. But a lot of times, um, mothers, I think a lot of times they don't understand that whenever you um, whenever you don't give a young boy an opportunity to win or to express masculinity, it just kind of it withers. And here's the thing: when it when it stops, you're not really gonna get. It's a really difficult situation to deal with because it's not like you can just because I mean, if you go back to what I was saying, they do this stuff initially because they want to make the boy more agreeable in order to make it easier to deal with him, right? The issue with that is, yes, you got a boy who's more compliant and he's, easier to deal with. You trained him to sit still, you train him to do little small things that, makes him easier to deal with. The issue with these things is that whenever whenever it comes time when he's older, when he has to defend his family, if those traits that you put into him that were essentially feminine traits, he won't be able to defend his family, and he likely won't care to do a lot of the things that he's naturally supposed to do. So this is something that I think uh, guys have to see within themselves, that this is something um, that they have to awaken within themselves and just understand on an esoteric level, since the woman in this particular picture is adopting the traits of a beta female and being more masculine, the boy will he'll take on the opposite energy, because a, a, a beta female will order the child, even when he gets older and he starts becoming more masculine, she'll essentially just train him to be codependent, because she'll take care of him and she'll do what a traditionally masculine man would do, right? She'll protect him, she'll provide for him. But then what happens? He adopts the feminine energy. So when this happens, basically he turns into a lazy, lazy lazy SOB. Now, this isn't an excuse for people who are lazy, but the point of this is to show that his energy becomes more passive because the mother never allowed him to to see a complementary role. Now, the complementary role would come from the mother being feminine, but this is made difficult because of the disappearance of the father. So it's a very entangled issue, and it's very difficult to tie down to just one thing, because it's like there's so many different connections. But on a spiritual level, the boy adopts the spirit of his mother. And once he adopts that, he basically becomes extremely lazy. And I'm not going to lie to you, so I've actually had this energy myself, and I've been very passive. And I can actually feel it, and I can sense when it's there. And it's actually very difficult to get out of. And yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I've experienced it. Um, so yeah, so what you see is when you have mothers who demonstrate beta traits, a lot of times when the boy does something and he wants to show the mom that he did something and it's good, a lot of times the mom will actually criticize the boy, but then this emasculates him. And he doesn't really see the need to get better at something, or a lot of times if this happens too often, I don't know. I think this affects the validation system for children. It's very delicate. It's also something that I don't fully understand, so I can't really go much further than just saying um, it's very important that when someone actually does something noteworthy, to tell them that they've done something noteworthy. But then also, when they've done something that doesn't really warrant much. Doesn't really warrant much, then you can tell them that. But then one of the things that's really important for young males is that um, if they don't do something, if they do something that you don't think is good, I mean, for the women, one of the ways you can deal with that is by giving them a clear path to do something better, something that will actually, like, something actionable. Like, just criticizing a lot of ways. I'm talking about the really young boys. I mean, when they're older, yeah, they can handle criticism, but I mean, you're their mother, so you're pretty much that's going to establish what type of women they bring into their lives. A lot of single mothers, their sons end up attracting very narcissistic women, or just kind of crazy women. I speak from experience, and pretty much a lot of my siblings attracted these things as well. And so I kind of just looked at it and I'm like, one of these things are just like the other.